That Naturopathic Podcast. TNP.
Hello there.
Hi, and thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. Cara Dionisio.
And I'm Dr. David Miller, and we hear your frustrations. This show is for you.
This show is for you if you're feeling like your current healthcare strategy is not getting to the root cause or the underlying reasons for your health.
This show is for you if you've been told that you're fine, but you definitely don't feel very well.
This show is for you if you're walking out of your doctor's office with 1, 2, 3, 4, or even 5 medications without any mention of diet, lifestyle, or a long-term game plan.
This show is for you if you've got several specialists taking care of you, but no one is really putting it all together.
This show is for you if you believe that health should be part of healthcare. These problems have solutions.
We know it.
Our patients know it.
And we want you to know it.
Naturopathic medicine is the solution that you need to know about.
All right, welcome to another podcast, another episode of That Naturopathic Podcast. And there's, of course, there's me, Dr. Dave here, but I'm very, very excited. We have a new guest today, and I think a possible co-host in the making, and it's Dr. Verna Hunt. And I can't tell you enough about Dr. Verna Hunt. She's a naturopath, she's a chiropractor, she's a hands-on wizard, she's an elder of the profession. She's been there and done that about 10 times. And one of the only things she hasn't done has been a podcast host, I think. And I'm so absolutely pumped to have you, Dr. Hunt, to be on the podcast. So thank you so much. You want to just give yourself a little intro maybe for the people?
Yeah, be glad to. So I grew up on a big dairy farm in southern Ontario, and I went to Waterloo and did kinesiology, and then was involved in the performing arts for a few years, and then I decided to go to chiropractic college, and that was a wonderful thing after my kinesiology degree. But then when I finished, I wanted to know more, so I became a naturopath. That's the short version. And I've been in practice, this year is my 42nd year as a chiropractor and 39 as a naturopathic doctor. And I'm fortunate that I really love my work. I use a lot of modalities. Listening is my best modality, and then touching is my second modality. And then I have many, many more. I like to solve problems. I love body puzzles, human body puzzles. And I've treated people who are very marginalized and very famous, and every age from newborns to 100-year-old people, and people who are very fit and people who are just striving to survive. And so I like a real diversity. Sometimes my colleagues who interview me ask me what my specialty is, and I say human beings. Human beings are my specialty. I don't do animals very well because I'm a suck with animals. I want to be able to talk to my patients, clients. And so I've practiced in Toronto my whole career, and at various locations. I'm on my 4th location in the Junction near High Park in Toronto. And people ask me when I'm going to retire, and I say I don't have the memo yet. So I work 3 days a week with clients, but I have other projects like the Naturopathic Legacy Project, which is saving our elder knowledge for future generations, and other things behind the scenes in the profession. So,
and you teach too, right?
I do teach. I have a manual therapies course that I teach, and I've taught in the past breast health and how to use infrared digital thermography. I've taught a lot about women's health. I've taught a lot about the lymph system, which is one of my passions, and then I like to be asked questions. So that's David's job, right, David?
Yeah, I guess so. But we share a lot. We have a lot in common. Like the first few things you were talking about were like humans as puzzles and figuring that sort of stuff out. Like that's just what that's really what gets me going too. But you've been in practice longer than I've been on this earth, which is which is a crazy thing to think about as I'm in
It
my
is.
42nd year. So
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to me too. Like when I stop and think about it, I stop thinking about it basically because I'm just where I am in the moment. I mean, I certainly have lots of memories. I certainly remember then when there were less than 24 naturopaths in Ontario. So times
That's
have
crazy.
changed.
Yeah. I got a couple of questions just to sort of ask you so people get to know a little bit more about your story with some specifics maybe. Like what made you, as a chiropractor within a couple of years of graduating, you decided, okay, I'm a chiropractor. I got magic hands, and you're probably doing some pretty cool stuff then. What made you go, I need to know more and become a naturopath?
Well, it was partly political. At that time, the chiropractic licensing board in Ontario was thinking that chiropractors should only touch the spine and only with their hands, and the scope was going to be very limited. And I wanted a really broad scope, so that's why I got a second licensing. And then as I did that degree, there were certain things I became more interested in. And even as far along as 20 years in, I got to study with a really amazing homeopath from France, Dr. Gerard Guénaud. And he changed homeopathy for me. He brought it into the 21st century. He made it dynamic and understandable. And that's something I hope to write about and teach more in the future because his knowledge isn't being taught, at least the way he taught it. So I'm really looking forward to that. And the other thing is I then studied things like Mayan abdominal massage, where you can reposition the uterus from the outside and all that kind of thing, and added it into a lot of belly work, like what's happening with the whole belly. And now I would never see a patient without touching their belly. It's that important. You know, the first brain is in the belly. There are more neurotransmitters in the gut than the brain. And so if your belly isn't happy, you're not happy. And that's why, you know, you got to talk about pooping and all of that stuff because people have very little common knowledge of it.
Yeah.
So as soon as I finished my naturopathic degree, then they wanted to de-license us. That was a little irksome. So then I became very, very, very involved in stopping that event from occurring, and worked very hard at that till about 2000 or 1995. And then I let other people take over, and then the new law was in 2015. So that was a long haul from 1982 to 2015. And I learned a lot about politics within the profession and in the country, because we don't want to lose this knowledge. And now we're in the midst of COVID. We don't quite know where we are because we're in our second lockdown. And who knows if we'll get to a fifth, who knows what will happen. But we don't want to lose the very practical, applicable care and knowledge. It's good to have sophisticated things and sophisticated testing. And if my leg's broken, take me to Emerge, you know, all of that. But we need things that people can do day to day just to improve themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and just for the listeners who are more like on the patient side of things, because this podcast sort of bridges, hopefully, sort of practitioner and patient at times, and so a lot of this is maybe really, really relevant for the younger practitioners, or just practitioners like me who are always hungry for the wisdom of the elders and there. But we'll get to just to keep the people who are more on the patient side of things, we're going to talk about a few important things by the time we get to the end of the podcast, which is, did you sleep? Did you poop? Did you eat? Is that not the right order?
I always start with poop because it's the most startling. Did you poop? Did you eat? Did you sleep?
Yeah. So we'll get to that by the end of the podcast, or within a few minutes, for those who are looking from the more patient perspective. But from the perspective of the hungry young practitioners looking for some wisdom, I want to ask you a couple other questions. And one is, what is the legacy project that you're involved in? And probably more importantly, why are you doing it, and why does it need to be done?
Well, over the years, there have been some amazing naturopaths which don't get talked about a lot in our history, I believe. From when I talk to students and new practitioners, they don't know who John LaPlante is. They don't know who Nora Stewart is. They don't know some really significant people. So one of our great colleagues, also a DCND in 2012, died suddenly, and that was Anton Ingard. And he was probably the best hands-on therapist I've ever met and seen. And he also taught colon therapy, also taught iris analysis. He also is a great differential diagnosis people. Anyway, and he and I had often talked about how so-and-so died and they had this unique thing they knew how to do, and we've never filmed it or videoed it now or wrote it down. And so when Anton died, I was asked by the OAND, there was a legacy left in his name, not a big one, what we should do. And I said, collect elder knowledge, collect this information. And for hands-on therapies, videos are great because, you know, you have to kind of see it and do it to get the feel of it. And I know, David, you've taken some of my classes, and it's you have to experience it. It's like tasting a banana. You know, if you didn't know what a banana was, and I said, you want to eat a cold cooked potato that's fruity, you'd go, no, because a banana is a banana, right? So some of the things we do, like unblocking your eustachian tube from the outside of the body, that's a really good skill to have. Airplanes, kids, sick, scuba diving, you know, all those things. So we started a project called the Naturopathic Legacy Project, where we were videoing elders doing hands-on therapies. And sometimes the videos are short and sometimes they're long. And we now are just getting to the point where people can go online and for a small fee watch the videos and learn that way as well. I did a long one because they begged me to do it. It was a new patient intake exam, and I have a real MSK or chiropractic point of view, so people get touched. I've had many young naturopaths say, I said, well, what do you do in your physical exam? And they say, well, I don't touch people. And that's startling to me. It's the thing. And it's really an important thing because the texture of the tissue, the vibration that you feel when you touch them, all of these things are really important, and we can talk about those things other times. But so I started that project, and we had a larger committee. We have a smaller one, and we're on our own independent self now, not with the OAND anymore because they thought we should move on, which we did. And so we are mounting the Naturopathic Legacy Project online, and it's available now. If people want to go and look at it, they have any trouble with that, they can get in touch with me. So it's just, you know, in 50 years, if your grandson, David, wants to be a naturopath and wants to know how to unplug that eustachian tube, we'll have it on film.
It's so important.
It is so important.
Talk about the man who passed away, was the inspiration for Legacy Project. What was his name again? His
name was Anton Ronald Ingard, Ingard. And he until he was 50, he went by Ron Ingard, but he got to 50, he thought, I'm gonna use my other name. And he was of Norwegian descent, like his grandfather was Norwegian. And he worked in more northern Ontario, and his last office was I forget how you say this name. Not as far as Collingwood, but that way. I call this COVID brain. I'm not saying it's anything to do with my aging. And he did a lot for the profession. There were so few of us that we all did a lot for the profession. But he, he would fly to Vancouver and teach when we had the program that was postdoc. So if we were a DC or a dentist or whatever, they had two areas where they taught. So he would fly. We'd go everywhere at our own expense. We'd fly and we'd teach for nothing. We'd do all of that. And so we could carry on the information. And so that's kind of going by the wayside, that kind of generosity.
Yeah.
But it's really important that this information survive and thrives and spawns new ways of looking at things. We're not trying to stop it. We're trying to make sure the foundation is there and our principles are there. And that's quite controversial lately through COVID, because people have extremely different viewpoints within our profession, and we're startling each other a bit. But we need to keep talking. We need to keep communicating. Come to the table, talk, listen. We don't have to agree. We just need to listen to each other and find out how we come to where we are. I think that's very important.
And that's not just in the profession, that's just in general. Like
it is.
The apprehension to have a different opinion or a different perspective is maybe a more precise way of looking at things, because sometimes the wisdom of one thing, I always say the wisdom of one thing does not preclude the wisdom of another way of looking at things. And the fact that that's even it creates little factions in the profession, it's worrying, but as long as everyone can do it safely in a psychologically safe zone, it's good. But what I find strange is that I don't know about Anton. Right? Sorry, Anton. I never heard about Anton. And for me, you're one of you're the hands-on naturopath to me. And I always thought it was, partially because you had this, you had the kinesiology prior to that, but also the chiropractic more so. So it gave you so to me, you're like the hands-on naturopath. So for me to hear you say that Anton was the hands-on man, that's saying something.
Yeah, he was going to medical school, and the summer before he was going, he had a really bad injury on a knee, and he went to a chiropractor, and he got his knee back. He was sold, and he went to chiropractic college. He graduated in 67, or he went in 60, a long time ago. And he had a few things that he did. He and I were both anatomy nerds, and he would visualize everything he would do, and he knew anatomy, so he could see it in very, very three-dimensionally. And so when he was adjusting, it was complex in that he was adjusting about three things at the same time. But he had this ability, and he was a sportsman. He was a cross-country skier and a horse. He rode horses. And so he had that physicality that he could introduce. How I brought physicality was more through dance, modern dance. I did a lot of dance way back. But that helps because you've lived in your body, you're not just sitting there occupying it. So, and he was involved in to make sure we weren't being deregulated. There was a very small group of us who invested a lot of time and money to make sure that we weren't deregulated at that time. And so.
Okay, and we'll do a full episode, I think, on touch at some point. But maybe could you just give a little teaser on how important you think touch is in any sort of doctor-patient relationship, and your concern about it remaining in the profession as a whole, but also then with COVID and the push towards virtual everything.
Yes.
Can you maybe touch on those concepts a little bit?
Sure. With time and just enough practice, so to speak, when you put your hands on something, you'll say, you won't even think the words in your head, but you will say, oh, this person kind of is clammy, especially clammy hands and feet. And that's liver congestion, for example. It's not detoxifying itself well enough. And of course, the liver also holds emotions and, anger, rage, bitterness, suppression, those kinds of things. So that's one, what does the skin look like, feel like, touch like? I don't lick skin, but it almost comes to that. And if you're working with infants, I've worked with a lot of infants' failure to thrive, and, parents being told the baby's dying and all these things. And I often wonder how many of those people that pronounce that actually touched the baby. So can you feel the vitality in the tissue? Sometimes when you touch people, it's like there's nobody home, and that could be of any age. It doesn't mean they're just old. A lot of people think elder people, they have to die of something as opposed to just go on to the next chapter. Whatever that means for that person, I suppose. Not there yet, but So there's a lot that you can ascertain by touch. You can ascertain a lot of things about the lymph system and the drainage system. And just looking at skin, crepe papery skin, if you just take your forearm on the non-hairy side and you just gently pinch it like a marshmallow. If you see babies with crepe papery skin, they're not getting enough oil. And if they're being breastfed, the mother's oil deficient. And I don't mean grease per se. I mean, it could be any kind of oil, but, olive oil or fish that you're eating or whatever, because the last 3 months of pregnancy, well, especially the last month, the baby's brain is growing at ultrasonic speed. And then if they breastfeed, which is hopeful, and the mother isn't eating enough oils, the body will pull off oil off the myelin sheath around the nerve. And then the woman comes up with what we call baby brain. She's kind of stupid and stunned. And, the baby's screaming, oh, is that the baby? Kind of thing. And it's that she's oil deficient in on a cellular level. I mean, you can eat oil, but if you can't absorb it, what's the use of that? So that's another story. But you can look a lot at babies and wonder what's happening to their brain by looking at their skin and touching it and holding it and so on. Or people hold a lot of trauma in their body, kind of physical trauma. I fell off a cliff, sexual abuse, or being beaten. And you think, well, that doesn't happen. It's happened to 70% of all adults. I never believed that till I was in practice.
Same. I couldn't believe the things I was hearing.
Yeah. So how do you help people come back to their body? So there is touch of a parent, touch of a spouse, I suppose, all those things. But when you have a therapeutic touch, I say to people, come to where my hand is. And if it's too much, you just tell me to stop. I respond to stop really fast. And a 2-year-old will test you on that. You give them the rules. And as soon as you touch them, they go, stop. And I stop and I wait. They say, okay, you can start again. They just want to know that I really mean it, because I want them to be in charge of the touch they're getting. And I say, people have to ask you if they can touch you. So I'm going to ask you every time. And if I don't ask them, they call me on it. Those 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds remember everything like that. So when you're having someone come into an area of trauma, like a whiplash, lots of people get whiplash, and then they say, no, I'm fine. And then they got headaches and all the things that occur. And if you come in too hard, too fast, because you're going to fix it, then you're probably causing more trauma if you're just brutalizing them. And that can happen in chiropractic. I can do the classical chiropractic thing, but there are times when, like, I'm working on an 82-year-old woman now who got a whiplash when they were doing a root canal on her a few months ago. And so am I twisting her neck off? No, that's not happening. That's not happening. I'm trying to get her back into that place in her body just by touch. So she'll meet the touch. And we can do that for ourselves. We do that for ourselves if we're really upset or if we have babies or whatever. The touch is so important. And a lot of people don't get touched.
Can you go into that? Because I think that is, like, it's been a gradual decline, I would say, in medicine in general, or all forms, other than maybe the manual therapists who are, that's all they do. But in conventional sort of medical and naturopathic, what about the decline of touch? And then now we've got this COVID. Like, can you, without trash, we got to be careful what we say, but, what do you think's happened?
The remarkable thing to me to this day is, kind of where I started from. I'm a good adjuster as a classical chiropractic way. But what I can tell you about examining somebody's belly now is phenomenal to me. And every day I learn something new, observe something new. And there's, what this day, but there's adhesions and there's twists in the bowel. Like, I think every internal specialist and people come in with belly problems, if they had a quality of skill, besides x-rays, nothing wrong with that. Ultrasounds, nothing wrong with that. But if they could touch it and say, oh, last time this was better or worse. And, I do have clients come to me who have been to every gastrointestinal specialist in the city, and they come in and we talk, and then I say, I want to feel your belly, and I feel their belly, and they're often near tears. And at first when this would happen, I would be like, oh my God, what have I done? They said, oh no, the other 4 doctors I went to never touched me. So how can you have somebody with a belly problem and not learn how to palpate that? But they don't. I'm not saying that people are bad people. Yeah. So.
No, that's exactly why I went into so I did your course, and I followed it up with doing that training in the Bristol Institute for osteopathy, which all the images you're saying, Verna, and the way we say that you ask the body to come to your hand, you work together with it. All the things you're saying, they sound so similar to the ways that I try and work with the osteopathic approach. So you kind of ask the body to dance. You go to it and say, hey, is it cool? You don't force anything, and it's all the images that you're painting of touch are very, very similar, I think, to the osteopathic approach. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, one of the manual therapies courses I gave, they're 1-day courses, is all about touch, different kinds of touch, when you would use them, what part of your hand, what part of your fingertip does what. And it's not just unique to me. The very tip of the fingertip is more targeted energy. It's zingier in a certain way. And if the person's already in silent pain, sounds weird, right? And you touch it, it can bring it up really fast. So you have to be really careful and pull off really fast, because if there's shock there, now they're in a little bit of shock. Mm-hmm. But then if you use the pad of your finger, it tells you about the texture of what's underneath it, versus you've targeted an acupuncture point or something to poke. Mm-hmm. And so there's all, the palm of your hand, you can pump things, versus your fingers pumping. It's a different result. There's lots of different things. And that, I think, is, I kind of am at the stage of my life where I want to download the information to people, because this is really valuable to learn, and to learn it just even for yourself or your children or your siblings or whoever. It's very useful.
Yeah, Verna, I can say probably I'm 10 times the practitioner I was, having focused on anatomical structural understandings of tissues and organs and the like. No one gets out without getting a belly exam, and it's I literally like at 10 times I feel better as a practitioner, which is nice, right? It's not just about me, but it just means our patients get, I think, more comprehensive, skilled care, and it's way easier to do the puzzles, right? Like, because you and I like puzzles, it's a big part of the puzzles, and I think we focus a lot as naturopaths and medical doctors, often, I guess, too, on what I call the micro perspective, which is like, leaky gut, and take this pharmaceutical and the cells and the neurotransmitters and all that, but we're less good at focusing on the big anatomical structures, which arguably I'd say in the last couple of years, I'd just say they're easier to work with. Like, you're talking about an organ, it's easier to understand an organ than a biomarker, right? Mm-hmm. I think I would assume that you work more with like the liver rather than high sensitivity C-reactive protein as a guiding.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a good marker. Because if it's high, to quote somebody in a different field, it means your house is on fire.
CRP?
Yeah. You're walking around living in this burning, smoldering fire thing. You're probably cranky. You're sore. You're irritable. And your body goes, I don't want to digest anything. Every surface is irritated and on fire. It's like smoldering. Mm-hmm. And I do a lot of storytelling in my work, because I really want to get people's attention in a kind way. But, I say to people, if you eat 3 times a day, you should poop 3 times a day. And their eyes open. I said, have you ever looked after a baby? You feed them, they poop. You feed them, they poop. That's what they do. You feed them, they poop. Right, David?
Yes.
Yes. So.
Well, maybe that's a good segue then. Let's do the segue into like the sort of funny, did you poop? Did you eat? Did you sleep? Can you maybe tell us, why we decided on, we've already decided on a few topics that we're going to sort of grossly cover. Mm-hmm. One of them was this. It was one of the first things you brought up. And I imagine it's because you bring it up with a lot of your patients.
I do.
As sort of foundational stuff. Do you want to?
Yeah. Well, back in the day when I remember Ronald Reagan was president, and he was a character, kind of, just beside himself. But at the time, I don't know if Gorbachev was president of Russia. I just think, are these people constipated? What's going on? They can't think right. And I started saying this to everybody. If you eat 3 times a day, you should poop 3 times a day. And they go, well, I go once. That's better than nonce, is what I always say. But why aren't you pooping? And some people have never pooped quite right. They have those little rabbit turdy things, coming out of them, just little pellets. I talk about shape, color, size, smell, all of that. We get right into it. And I have
bring up the Bristol stool chart.
Yes, exactly. Give them a little chart. And then I usually tell them how to just gently massage their belly, how to do castor oil packs, and are they eating enough fiber? And they'll say, I don't like vegetables. And I'll say, well, then why don't you make stew with vegetables in it and, your buffalo meat or whatever your passion is there. I go to Newfoundland a lot, and it's moose meat, and it's great in a stew because they have root vegetables. That's what they can grow, and turnip and carrots and onions and potatoes. And in white potatoes, there isn't much fiber, but in yams and all those, there's a lot of fiber. It's called soluble fiber. So it's sneaky. Applesauce is soluble fiber. And I've seen a few, maybe half dozen people in my career allergic to apples. So of course it doesn't apply to them, but soluble fiber in applesauce, no matter how sick you are, you can usually get a teaspoon of applesauce down, and that will start to collect all the toxins and usher it out. But applesauce is really gooey and, not slimy, but it's easily movable. It's not like I'm saying chew on an apple, and you can feed applesauce to a very young baby, all of these things, and it just helps everything flow, and it collects so many times its weight in toxins. I forget the statistic now, but it's a lot. So you can go to a corner store. It might have sugar in it, but more and more it's just applesauce. So when I worked with a lot of people who traveled a lot, like diplomats and rock stars and movie people, all of those things, I'd say if you're feeling oogie in your belly, just go and buy some applesauce. And now they have those little 1 serving things so you can carry them with you. I always have them in my office because some kids always want to know what they could have for a snack when they come to my office. Mm-hmm. So I give them a tongue depressor and a little applesauce container, and off they go because that's pretty cool. Tongue depressor, and that's mainly what I use tongue depressors for. And so you want this toxicity that's being collected and the debris, and you want it to come out. Like before surgeries, I say to people, do not eat a heavy meal 3 days before. We don't want stuff sitting in there because now you've had general anesthetic, for example. And so there's a lot of things can help you poop. Beets, if you like them. Beets can do that. And
they can scare you too when you see them coming out.
Yeah, because they look like dark red blood. And I have people phone me, I'm bleeding. I said, did you eat beets? Yeah, I said it's beets. Even though you tell them people can't remember when they're startled, whatever it was. You told them I'm like that. Most of us are like that. So we want this debris coming out and not sitting up there in there forming unions with other things. And you don't want and
Verna, you're pretty solid on your 3 times a day, because if you look up conventional definitions, right, we can always have fun with conventional definitions. Sometimes the bar of excellence is pretty low on them, but I think constipation is 3 times a week or something or more, and you're not constipated. So you're saying basically 21 times a week is sort of optimal.
Well, it's not a competition, but if you think about it, I mean, you have a baby in your life now, don't you?
No, we got a baby on the way.
Baby on the way. I made him sick.
Yeah.
But you're going to find out if you feed them, then they'll poop quite quickly because you've stimulated the digestive tract, and everybody's cooperating, and out it'll come. In the strangest ways, and babies, it's like every kind of color. You get really excited. Oh, wow, this is green poop. Are they dying? No, they're not dying. So there's all of those things, but you do.
But yeah, stuff's coming in, so stuff should come out. Like you said, there's some coordination and some intelligence going on there.
But will you poop if a grizzly bear is chasing you? So how many people who are, quote, constipated or slow there, how do they engage their life? Are they at full out run? In Toronto they are, or were. Like if there's a lot of things I say, if you're in danger and you don't even realize it, but your boss is in the next room and, he's talking to the head of HR about you, or like whatever it is, or you're getting bullied in the schoolyard and you're 10 or 12 years old, like whatever. Are you going to go poo when there's a bully following you to the bathroom? Probably not. There's all of these things. So we have to have a time when we can sit on the toilet and have something under our feet. Like if you put a 5 to 10-year-old on a toilet, but their feet don't touch the floor, and they're feeling like a tippy canoe, are they going to let go? No. Or if it's the kind of family where everybody gets to come in while you're trying to poo, somebody's in the shower, I'm from 5 kids. Somebody's in the shower, right? So there's this grizzly bear analogy I use a lot where, people say I can't get pregnant, but the woman's in a really stressful job, and her idea of relaxing is a 3-hour sleep every night, like whatever it is. I say, what makes you think your body wants to make a baby while you're running away from a grizzly bear all the time? Makes no sense. Yeah. And so their adrenals are tired and all that kind of thing. And kids, if you ask a child, probably I've had a 4-year-old answer this question: what's stressing you? So one child decades ago said to me, she says, well, I'm 4 years old. I said, yeah, I knew that. Yeah. And she said, I go to school. I'm in JK. I said, yeah. She said, I have homework every night. She said, I'm just a little kid. I should be playing. I said, you're right. I looked at her mother. She said, we're moving schools. Like she was stressed, but she didn't use that word. But that's a big thing about pooping. Are we jumping out of bed? We take 2 minutes to brush our teeth, have a coffee. There's no time for pooping in there, you know, and squatting. The best way to poop is to squat. And, if you have a stool, there's a thing called a pooping stool, isn't there, that kind of hugs around your toilet?
Squatty potty. Brilliant marketing done several years ago. It's really, really funny. Squatty potty. Yeah.
Well, and you can just get a little step stool and have it there.
Yeah.
So that people's lower orifices will relax and open.
Because of the structural changes, right, Verna?
Right. Because it goes from an oblong to a round circle. That's why it's better for women to deliver more in a supported squatting, because they have a circle instead of this oval thing. And babies do come out with an oval head, and it's because they come out through an oval opening, right?
Yeah.
So why aren't you pooping? Is it not enough fiber? Is it not enough quietude in the moment? And some people are maybe introverted, but they're very self-conscious about bodily function things. And there could be reasons for that. Once I had a little boy come in, and he was 2-ish. And once they got him in diapers, he would go over in the corner and kind of lean weird. And this is one of my first belly things I ever did. And what happened was there was a slight twist in his bowel in the sigmoid flexure. When I fixed that, he would just poop normally. Yeah. But he couldn't get the poop out. And that's why belly thing is so important.
Yeah.
In casserole. So am I firm on the 3 a day? No, I eat food twice a day. That's the way I happen to eat right now. I can have little protein drinks, but I find, and other people, they get the urge to poop when they're starting to relax. As soon as they go in their own door at home, they have to go poop first, right? But if you're in the middle of your doctoral presentation, probably not. That's the grizzly bear thing.
Yeah, it makes sense when you look to sort of nature for the wisdom there. I want to move on from pooping. Well, I don't really, because I love talking about that. But
let's go on.
I do want to move on to just another section of pooping, which is, what about people pooping too much? Because it is more common, I guess, to see constipation. But what about when you see someone who poops too much, then what are you thinking? Because we don't want to leave them out.
No, we don't want to leave them out, because that's a very high anxiety state, because you never know when you're going to poop. So why is the gut lining so irritated that it can't reabsorb water? What's happening to the little internal skin there? For people who aren't doctors, they're called villi, like little fingers. But what's happening to the cell lining? They can call it leaky gut, but what's happening to the integrity of the gut, and how do you begin to rebuild that? And are they sensitive to a food? For example, cow milk is made for big, bony, rather stupid animals. I know, I grew up with them. And now Holstein milk, that's the black and white cows, is more like that. Now Guernseys and Jerseys are closer to human milk, and people react less to that. And there's a specialty happening now within the industry, the dairy industry, so that people can get just that milk. But the protein is different, because human milk is very fatty, because we have to grow our intelligent super brains and all our nervous system. We're a really nervous system animal. Cows, not so much. So they have their place, and I'm not denigrating Holstein cows, but goat milk is closer to human milk. Now, when you think of the intelligence of a goat and a cow, goat probably wins, because it's more a neurological animal. And so there's what's going on in the gut. There's a totally huge neurological component for Crohn's and IBS and all of this stuff. And one greater load on all of that right now is electromagnetic frequency pollution, 5G and all the stuff that's happening, because the nervous system really gets a little fried with all of that. And there is lots of data out there. It seems the solutions aren't totally available, but we'll find them. We'll find them, because we have to, because it's really affecting people. There's more IBS and more children who have the tablets very young, or in a school where everybody has their own computer. And
yeah, these are unpopular and inconvenient truths, I think.
Yes.
That's the way it is.
Yeah. And more suicides in 8 to 10-year-olds.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I wonder about that and resilience. And we actually, I don't know if you know Jen Forrestal, but we had her on a previous podcast. She's amazing about teaching the Umbrella Project and teaching kids how to have an umbrella when it rains, because stuff's gonna happen in life. It's not great. Yeah. So I'd refer back any listeners to what Verna's touching on there. Is, I think, possibly an aspect of it is resilience in kids. And that was it. You'd love that one, Verna. She did a great job. She's trying to teach kids how to have the resilience to deal with adversity and things like that. So
yes. So yes, the diarrhea. And so there's food, there's neurological. It can be a low back problem. That's where the nerves come from. That I once met a man. He was constipated all the time. I adjusted his low back. He's never constipated again.
Yeah,
that's kind of 1 in a million story, but it can happen.
No, I've seen people come for something else, for gut issues, but then in my intake I'm like, how about low back pain or back pain? They're like, yeah, brutal back pain. Then I adjust their the mesentery, the root of the mesentery of the small intestine. They're like, oh, back's good. So it's funny sort of finding. Yeah,
go both ways. Yeah, when people wake up at 5 a.m. every morning with back pain, that's a clogged cisterna in the lymph system usually. So if you get that moving.
You said some words that people aren't going to know there, Verna.
Yeah, it's the drainage system of your lower body.
You smartened me up to the cisterna chyli, so thanks for that. The sewer. We'll talk about Are You Swampy another time.
Yeah.
But let's move on from pooping.
Yes.
What's the next thing?
Well, we kind of talked about eating a bit, so we could go there.
Yeah.
I mean, when we have a newborn, they are grazing animals, and they eat, poop, and sleep, and that cycle has different rhythms, but that happens a lot in one day. and you're glad you have an automatic washer, right? But as they get older, there's when we're digesting, the body likes to focus on that, and then we can then go on and do skipping or algebra or whatever it is we're doing. But in many countries, they have a siesta after lunch, for example, so they can digest their food. And on the farm, we didn't call it a siesta, but since we were up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning and you had your breakfast and then you worked and you had your lunch, you just wanted a little time to digest all of that stuff. So if you're eating a huge meal at lunch and then you think you're going to do brain surgery, I think that wouldn't probably be a good idea, because your brain is in your belly at that time. So what I'm trying to get to is, some people graze all the time, and every hour they eat, and it's not ideal, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you're eating. Some people, we've been taught in our culture in the last 200 years, we eat grains for breakfast. And they weren't as genetically modified. No, they're very genetically modified in general. But are they digestible? And can you allow in a family, when the kid who eats oatmeal either has a tantrum or has diarrhea or whatever, can we be observant to that and thinking, that doesn't agree with that person, that oatmeal?
No.
Now, I pick oatmeal because it's kind of a ubiquitous food in Western culture. It's like around. But it's not for everybody. And I've seen people who can't eat salmon. That was a mystery to me. Or apples. That was a mystery to me. But they live in that body. I don't live in that body. And if they say every time I eat salmon, I barf my guts out, I think, good to know. Listen to that, We don't know why necessarily, but you have to respect that. So what can you teach with children as they go along, and give them time to chew, and demonstrate it yourself, that you chew your food, you chew your quarter apple, you chew the celery, and even if it's a liquidy thing, you chew the vegetables in the soup and the meat in the soup. So the best way to harness that ability is you take a bite of food and you put your fork down. And when that food is out of your mouth, you pick your fork up.
That's an interesting tip. I'm going to try it.
That's what I tried.
I've never thought of that. That's a great idea.
It's just a mindfulness thing.
Yeah, you're setting yourself up for success. I love little tricks like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Verna, what do you do when you have someone like a patient or if it's just someone out there who's got something similar? What would you tell them when they have these sensitivities to so many foods and they become so restrictive and restricted in what they can do? I just call it like they don't have much sort of like nutritional or dietary flexibility.
Right. Well, often there's something else going on in another aspect of their physicality or consciousness. And I would say, okay, you've got these 6 foods, could be as little as 6 foods, that you can eat. And while you're eating, I want you just to be with it and enjoy it and chew it and try to say, this is going to really help my body. Now, if you know that when you drink milk, you're going to barf for 4 hours, honor that. Mm-hmm. But let's take where you are now. We can give people a lot of projects to do. Go and do this, go and do that. But sometimes when in that situation, they're probably very neurologically stressed. How can we honor what they can do versus what they can't do? Mm-hmm. Like, what's wrong with them? Well, let's see what's right. What's right. And sometimes we don't tell each other and ourselves what is a good thing about that I do when I'm eating. Well, when I can afford it, I try and buy something organic that I can eat. Wonderful. Like, and how do you cook it? And do you enjoy cooking? But a lot of people now don't know how to cook, and they think they don't like cooking. And it could be that they don't they weren't mentored. You weren't beside your grandma and cooking. That doesn't happen so much anymore. But what can you do to teach people to make soup? I teach a lot of people to make soup from leftovers, and how you get the flavor you want and the texture you want. And people say, they pay you for that? Yeah, because now they have a skill.
Yeah.
They have a skill. And things they can do to just make things taste better in their mouth or feel better in their mouth. So what I try and do is look at the foods, the 6 foods they can eat, and if they have something in common, or if the 20 things they can't eat have something in common, and try and map out what's happening, and then introduce them to a new food that is convenient. Like take avocado. Avocado is 1/3 carb, 1/3 protein, 1/3 oil. It's the only food like that I know of. And someone very young, a year and a half old, can eat avocado. And someone very elderly whose teeth aren't working, like whatever. It goes across the ages. Now, I've met people who hate avocado. It's a texture thing, and that's a whole other food thing. Yeah. Yeah. So what's happening to their tactile? The tongue is part of the brain. What's going on there? And that's to do with the limbic system and midbrain. And they might need cranial work. There's a lot of ways to approach it. So I kind of didn't exactly answer your question, but
no, it's all food. This is important food stuff, because there's so many protocols and like crazy diets and all this stuff. And as even at my stage of practice, I'm already going, okay, just throw them all out. Like there's wisdom, I'm sure, in a little bit of all of them, but like just strictly adhering some crazy diet from a biohacker. It's so regimented, but that's kind of the way. Like formulaic as a whole. Formulaic, exactly.
It's formulaic. Well, in our culture, we like things commoditized and formulaic, and you see that in our profession. Okay, this is a 25-year-old woman who's infertile, and these are the supplements she exactly needs.
Yeah.
I don't follow that. I want to know what's happening in the research, but I have a sibling who, when I was first in practice, there's a way I test supplements and she'd say, I can take all these supplements, but when I get this one near my mouth, I back up from it. I won't put it in my mouth. And I think, I'm 25. What do I know? And I thought, this is ridiculous. Don't be so ridiculous. And I test her again, and she was right. She didn't like it. I have patients that you can give them certain supplements for a short time, and then you have to go off. You have to do this all rotation thing. Everything's individual. Everything, because we're all individuals.
And so I'm just going to pump up your tires a bit here, like that. I think, not that you need it, but whatever. It's easier to be like that. And so while I'm pumping up your tires, I'm also extending an understanding sort of sympathy or empathy to newer practitioners, because it's hard to be good at this job, and you're very good at this job. And you've been doing it for a long time, and I think you've got some God-given stuff, and you worked hard, but it's easier to be formulaic, right? It's an energy requiring process to be not formulaic and to be very individualized as much as you can, but it's hard. And so like if there's young naturopaths listening, or if there's people going, why do different naturopaths do different things? Well, this is why.
So when I started, I had my kinesiology and chiropractic, and I studied applied kinesiology, and then I hit reality in practice. And I very quickly learned to ask myself questions. What's going on here? It seems like an obvious question, but it's kind of on an energetic level. Like when you think of this person and you've done their intake and everything, what words would you use to describe them? Are they rigid? Are they stubborn? Do they not seem to have any boundaries and no discernment about who their friends are? Like seeming like that's not to do with their bowel. But, boundaries are a really important thing. If we didn't have skin, we'd just ooze out and die, and I talk about boundaries to people that way. Skin is a boundary. It's there for a reason. And so if they have leaky gut, leaky brain, leaky everything, and their skin looks like crap, there's a boundary issue. It's kind of a metaphysical comment, but so what what makes good boundaries? Resilient, not too hard, not too soft. You need to have good oils, good protein, and you can go on and on, vitamin A, zinc, all kinds of things. So those are good things to think about a bound gut line formula, all these things. So you have to think in a critical thinking about that person. And some people come in and they're smoking and drinking and doing everything. They say, I want to go on a cleanse. I go, do you? Really? Are you constipated? Oh, yeah, but I want to go on a cleanse. I say, you're not healthy enough to go on a cleanse. And then I explain to them why. So our work is all about cleanse and build, cleanse and build, cleanse and build. That's what we're doing, and the body will do the rest. Do I know how to grow your skin cells? No. I say to people, sometimes say I'm a healer. I said, let's be clear, I'm not a healer. I said, your toenails and hair look much better than if I was in charge of them. You look ridiculous. Look at me. Can't keep my own hair combed. I said, your body knows how to make babies. It knows how to heal a bone. I don't know actually how to heal a bone. So what is the essence of this person? Okay, they're in crisis. They come in, something's pushed. Okay, accompany them. Dr. Gounod used to say, accompany them on their journey of the crisis, help the crisis. What's the urgent part of it? And some people, it's just that they have acne. Nothing wrong with being upset if you're a teenager and you have acne. But that's a different issue than if, their poo's coming out of them 24/7 and they're wasting away. But what are you dealing with? How do you accompany them? How do you give them the emergency or urgent things to survive? And then how do you begin to build in resiliency? And I think a lot of us would agree that if your gut biome's shot, you got to start there.
Yeah.
Like if your gut isn't happy, nothing else is working.
Yeah.
So you have to have these ways of thinking about it. And so that's why I think it would be important on shows like this or on the Legacy Project, if we have different elders, the second Wednesday of every month, we just people can come on and ask questions. Yeah, I really thrive with I just like questions, and then I just start talking, but I think that you have to really think about the essence of the person and what's happening. And is that their true self? Are they just surviving because they were, horribly abused as a child, and so they have a defense compensated pattern that looks like who they are, but it isn't who they are. And then years later, they're ready to do that work, not because they were stubborn, but they just didn't have the resilience to even approach the trauma that was embedded. So you have to help them along the way. You're accompanying them on their journey. I mean, I have one client I've had since I was an intern at Chiropractic College in 1978. I have patients usually for a long time or a short time, doesn't matter to me. Or people come back after 10 years and they say, I'm ready to do the work now. I say, great, let's get going. I don't have opinion about that. I don't live their life.
But Verna, wouldn't you say it's some of the things that you're sprinkling into what you're saying here are difficult to teach in terms of like a classroom setting? And I feel like some of it, and this is where mentoring and Legacy Project and stuff like that becomes very important, or at least I think it could be a critical step towards success, even for not only for naturopaths but their patients too, because some of this is just life wisdom lessons, that you just can't really learn in school. So, do you think some of it comes from just life lessons, or because some of the stuff is your ability to perceive the person, like you're saying this person has low, maybe boundaries are a little too much, or the boundaries are a little too permeable. That's a kind of understanding of viewing a person in a different way than you're going to learn in Physiology 201.
Exactly. So one idea about that is I always think as a practitioner, I cannot take anybody down a road I kind of haven't gone myself. I don't think I have to do the exact same road, but I work on my own health all the time. And I got into this, and when I was 18, I had mono for 3 years. That was boring. I thought, this is screwy. What's going on here? And So that's one thing. And the other thing is asking yourself questions and asking the patient questions. Questions are the most important thing. Having a snap answer, oh, it's leaky gut. Sure, go ahead and treat that. But ask the questions about what's going on. And that's one thing that I've honed over the years, is how to not be what do you call that? Interrogating them. That's not useful. Yeah. But how you asking people, what are the greatest stresses in your life right now? You will get the answers you never expected. It's a really open question. It's a really open question. And
there's not much space for it in average day to day for a lot of people too, right? Like sometimes I feel like that, I'm like ready to do my gut thing. Like I'm a gut whisperer. I'm going to fix that. Yeah. And then not half time, but a good proportion of the time, someone just needed a place to come and say, well, everything's feeling a bit shit right now. And this, my wife is this, or my husband is this. And you just listen, and you have a place.
That's right.
A place for it.
Listening is your first skill. Questions are your second skill. Mm-hmm. And it's just active listening or commenting. They'll say something, I say, well, that must be really hard. I mean, just acknowledging that you heard them, so that they know that you got it. And I've had people with many races, religions, ethnicity, gender identity. Like, I've had it all. Mm-hmm. And I've been on a real learning curve sometimes because I didn't have that life experience. But I sought out answers to things that if I didn't know, in this religion, they do this at this time of year for this and that and this, and to not give them a food restricted diet. Their ritual practice is as important as what they're eating, whatever. So questions and listening is, and if I don't understand an answer, I said, so what I heard you say is this, but could you tell me that in a different way, or could you repeat it? Because I want to hear the good technique. Yeah. I want to hear the energy in their voice or their cry. I've had a client who's now passed, but he was born blind, cerebral palsy, lots of things, and he was always getting pneumonia. And so his mother would call me from the hospital. I said, just set the phone down, and I'd listen to him cry. And over time, I learned he had different cries. That child taught me so much. I would just listen to him for half an hour. Mm-hmm. I'd be sitting around and just listening to him. I said, I think you should try this. Why? I had no idea why. It was just listening to him. Mm-hmm. And he knew who I was, because when I saw him physically, I would always just very gently touch his cheek, and then he knew it was me. I had a way of signaling him it was me, because nobody else touched him that specific way, and he knew. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So things aren't
connecting. Right? Those are all connecting. If you sort of grossly group them into something, you're just connecting with another human being.
Yeah. Yeah. I see you.
Yeah.
I see you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I have toys in my office for children, because you're an idiot if you don't. If you think you're going to have pediatric practice, I have one little toy thing that I've had ever since I've been in practice. I should have bought 10,000 of them because they never break. But,
Tell me what to buy. I'm an idiot.
Okay. I will show you next time. And stickers are very important.
We've got stickers. Stickers are great.
Yeah. And I hand them out, or they get to pick. And sometimes when the adults are having a really hard time, and at the end I said, do you think you need a sticker? And they go, yeah. I give them to all ages. Or I stick them on their lapel, So,
we got one more category when you're done. We got one more category to move on to.
Okay.
Because Verna, we could go on. My God.
I know, you and I could talk forever, couldn't we?
We could.
Yeah.
Now we'll get to the sleepiest part.
Sleep hygiene. They call it sleep hygiene, which doesn't mean like you scrub your skin hard and go to bed. The biggest sleep hygiene I'm concerned about is EMFs, electromagnetic sensitivity. The greatest polluter in your house of that is cordless phones. Get them out of your life. Get them out of the house.
Like cordless phone or cellular?
No, cordless.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh. Didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. Then there's the blue light. I have some new just reading glasses. I'll show them off here. They're red. That have a blue light filter in them. So I've been on the computer more, like times like this.
Yeah.
I was just at the conference, the worldwide conference online, of course, of 5G.
With your blue light glasses on?
Yes. I have a special pair for home and special pair for here. And that was really enlightening. There's, I don't know if you have a website for this bloggy thing we're doing, podcast thing we're doing, but there are certain handouts that we can share about, what are the 7 steps you can do inside your house and around your life just to change your EMF exposure, because it's very critical. We're being exposed to things that we haven't.
You have a handout?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we'll put it on. If you have a link to it, what we'll do is we'll get Janessa to put it in the notes, and people can go and download that.
It's from Building Biologics. They're a group, and they just want it handed out to everybody.
Okay.
Okay. So sleeping in a darkened room. Make sure the room is as dark as it can be in the city. It's very difficult, but I have blackout blinds. That's a really important thing. Try and have a bed that doesn't have metal in it. So you have,
What's that all about?
Electromagnetic stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a great place that makes, should I say this? Knockoff memory foam. It's called Foamite, and they custom make them, and they don't have, no, it's expensive. And they're great, but they're, sleep on a bed that's to your liking, so your spine isn't sagging. You want your spine kind of in a straight line. And sleep to the north, if you can, with your head to the north.
What's that all about?
Electromagnetic energy of the earth. Yeah.
So in a northwest direction, or do you mean your head has to be towards the north?
Head towards the north. Ish.
I got it asked backwards.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you were in Chile, it would probably be good then. You're in a different polar thing. Sleep to the north. Good bedding, which doesn't mean expensive. It's just like I find it impossible to sleep in polyester because you get this clammy sweat thing happening. I do anyway. Try and have that and change the bedding, and now they're making babies onesies, those little one jumper suit things that have electronics in them, so you'll know when your baby peed their pants with EMFs in them all the time. This is not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what else do I have written down? Yeah, how much EMF is coming into the bedroom? So no phones in the bedroom, no TV in the bedroom, everything.
Even if they're on airplane mode?
You can, and you need to turn the Wi-Fi off in your house every night when you go to bed.
Okay.
I started doing that, but now I'm getting my phone out of the room completely, so there's nothing pinging at me. It doesn't get to you, but with the airplane mode, but it's still searching.
Right. Verna, what's the most reliable, or because this is all, it's classic humans with toys and humans with technologies that we sort of do first and then think later about the consequences of what we've done. So because it's sort of a burgeoning sort of area, what is the most reliable sort of evidence that we have of a particular set of issues that's going on?
Yeah,
with
there's a
EMF?
lot from that conference. There's a lot of evidence now.
But if there's something you could say you can really hang your hat on, there's definitely a real correlation in this area. What do you think that would be? Don't tell me it just affects humans because you treat humans.
Yeah, neurological things.
Okay.
ADHD, suicide, gaming, addiction to gaming, where the dopamine is just the amygdala in the brain's being so revved up so long. And then those people that are that addicted, they do that. They hardly sleep. They wear adult diapers so they don't have to go to the bathroom. They can just keep gaming. It's the most serious addiction beyond cocaine.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And that's going on. Who knew? So there's a psychologist in the States, really nice guy, probably your age, and he's got a detox center for gamers.
Wow.
It's 10 weeks, he says.
It's gotten to that point.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we want a clean, healthy bedroom and dark, because then we get more melatonin, and that does lots of great things for you. And just
sleeping and sex, right? In the bedroom, sleeping and sex, right?
That's right. Yeah.
That was cool. You said cool. Did you say cool bedroom?
I didn't, but I think most people prefer a cooler bedroom than a hot bedroom, so that you're not. So you feel kind of more. What's that? Swaddled, like you feel
nice,
like you're in a comfy place, nesting, all of that, that kind of thing. But we could talk about that for hours, but we're probably done, aren't we? Are we done? Time. You had a time. I'm watching the time.
Verna, I'm just going to pause for a moment.
Okay. In addition to the things I've already said about sleep, if you can get in the habit of doing this, it might help you sleep more restfully, is just review your day and see if there's anything bugging you about your day. You might not even realize it. And you can think, well, I'm really glad that happened. And, when I found out my shirt was on backwards, I wish somebody had told me. So I'm going to check in the mirror every morning now, and whatever it is. And other people have other things they might do related to their spirituality. That'd be great. And to help children, mentor children in doing this. If you haven't had a chance to ask them how their day was, what was the best part? Was there anything that was hard, difficult? And even if you don't have a solution, you don't want to make yourself crazy and think all night. But I have a habit of putting things in an imaginary brown paper bag and folding it down and putting the problem in there. And then when I get up in the morning, I unroll it and problem's gone. So that's one of my little habits. But it isn't always gone, to be honest, but 80% of the time it's gone. And
more questions, Verna? Just asking questions like, hey, how was my day?
Yeah.
Questions come in again.
Yeah. So that's the other thing I would do, and to try and get to sleep before midnight, because in the circadian rhythm, it really helps. And give yourself enough time in the morning. That means you might have to go to bed earlier. It's hard to do, but, don't have to be like a shot out of a cannon to just get out the door. So you can have a little time to be with yourself or your family before you.
It's not like a great energy to start the day. I find just sort of getting up a little bit earlier than you absolutely have to just changes the buzz in the morning, kind of, right?
It does. So I hope this has been helpful for everybody. And if you have questions, let David know, or me, but you could let David know. And we can talk about anything.
We'll try and bring questions that people have. If there's engagement on the Instagram or something, we'll bring the questions to you, because you're just like a wealth of information. And I know one person already has got a lot from this conversation. So hopefully there'll be lots more. But I think I know a few things, but I am always humbled when I talk to you. So let's continue to get your wisdom out there, Verna, and we'll get together again in a week's time. Okay.
Yes, and I look forward to that very much. Thank you.
Okay, me too. We'll see you then.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Hug yourself. Hug your loved ones. Maybe hug your enemies. I don't know.